It's a story for the ages, of love, loss, family, and the bond between father and daughter, of a man who, in his time of need, found something that would change his life forever, and would leave him as quick as she could fly around with her blue pony wings. My Little Dashie is one of those fanfictions in the My Little Pony fanfic Hall of Fame, up there with the Fallout crossover that's almost the length of the Bible, really, and all the spooky creepypasta stories. Since it's time for Thanksgiving, where we all get together with our families, I think it's only right we take a look at this story. You know, it's about family, and that's what's so powerful about it. My Little Dashie is different from some of the other things I've talked about in these deep dive type videos. Like, we've seen things here that are meant to be cute and tug at your heartstrings somewhat, but Dashie is the most extreme example of it. Is it really as sad as people like to claim, though? I need you to realize that a lot of the commentary surrounding the story is basically hashtag like if you cry every time. Going into the comments on the original FIM fiction upload, or any reading or adaptation of the story on YouTube, you get people talking about how this made them shed a tear and hit them right in the feels, even to this day. So, you know, how about we take a look inside that mysterious cardboard box? This is My Little Dashie. The idea of a guy finding a baby Rainbow Dash in real life wasn't thought up by the author here. It's actually based on this comic by DeviantArt user Opposite Bros. This genre of MLP in real life images would turn into its own little subculture of pony art. Some pieces are better than others. Like, you can put any old PNG of a pony into a photo you take with your iPod Touch, but adjusting the lighting and airbrushing shadows on it in Photoshop is a whole other step. I don't care if they look like cardboard cutouts, there's some skill going into them. The extra step is obviously compositing videos of ponies into the real world, either taken from the show or original animation, and we'll talk about that later, but for now, let's get to the story. The My Little Dashie fanfic itself isn't too long of a read, and while I usually divide these kinds of videos into chapters, there's no real need to, actually. There are some divisions in the original story that I can split this up to, plus an upload to fanfiction.net by Hey, You're Not the Original Author, where it lazily slices it up mid-sentence into 5 chapters. But trash that, we're just doing a straight shot. So we all know that somebody finds Rainbow Dash in a box. Y'all have that down in your notes by now, but who is this guy? Our main character doesn't really have a name, so we're just gonna call him Anon. Anon lives in what he calls a dying city, where all the factories and businesses lay abandoned. The city, however, used to be full of life, he says, just like his parents. With nothing to live for in this bleak world, his only real escape is the occasional hanging out with his friends or watching some good old My Little Pony. Rainbow Dash is obviously his favorite because it reminds him of this one painting his mom did of a rainbow. You know, symbolism. While on a walk through the barren city, he finds a small cardboard box with a baby Rainbow Dash. Now, who on earth would throw away a perfectly good magical pony? Sorry, before I read this, that Rainbow Dash Presents parody was my only basis for the story. More on that later. He takes the baby home and figures out what to do with it. Since the government would cut her up, he decides to keep her as his own. Saving a small baby animal from the cold is a universal cute thing, so it's no wonder we get so attached to our little Dashie. Anon teaches her to walk, read, and write, but he's no teacher, nor a father. He and the pony seem to be warming up to one another. She even sleeps in his father's old recliner, which hasn't been touched since his passing. Symbolism, yeah, she's filling the void of his parents being gone from his life, yeah, there's themes of parenthood and learning to accept loss. Okay, put that in your 9th grade English paper and smoke it. Fast forward a few years, Anon has been raising her like a daughter now, even taking her outside to the park to practice flying. Rarity gets her cutie mark and they celebrate. Flash forward again 10 years, this is where things start to get interesting. Anon realizes he can't keep her around in the city, so he gets the idea to buy a house out in the country so Dashie can run free without getting discovered. Hey yeah, guy who made Wolf Children, we're expecting a check in the mail for the idea you stole from My Little Dashie, okay buddy? Their relationship has its ups and downs. Dashie is very much aware she's a pony and can't really do things like humans can. Anon makes a joke about it and they have this dramatic scene where she runs out into the woods. This really is like Wolf Children. Oh wait, no, that's the part where she finds out she's a cartoon character. I describe it as ups and downs, but the only real big story beats are all the times that Rainbow Dash has these existential emotional breakdowns. A reminder that this is 10 years later and MLP is still airing. Of course, yeah, this guy's predictions aren't going to be spot on, like the Hub channel still being around, but he mentions it ending after 8 seasons. Not too far off. As I said, they make up, but there's never a dull moment in the Anon household. Flash forward about a month or two, and guess who's at the door? Princess Celestia and the main 6. That's right, they've come to take Rainbow Dash back to Equestria. So I bet we're all wondering, audience, how she ended up in the real world as a baby. Well, turns out her good friend Twilight Sparkle cast a spell to try and control the weather, but misfired and hit Dashie, which had, as you can imagine, wild effects on her. This is also the part with this infamous passage. Let me read you guys this. Anon says, "Yes, Dashie is in her room. I wasn't sure who was knocking and didn't want her to be spotted." Dashie, my, you're that friendly with her already? Rarity continued. I wanted to punch that pony so hard right then. How she responded insulted me. Friendly? That's not even the beginning of it. And I should be asking you ponies as to what the hell you did. Wanted to punch Rarity. What in the Sam Hill did she do to you, dude? I guess this is another example of needless Rarity hatred. Even in the video version, you can see him doing the Arthur Fist thing and Rarity looking around all perturbed. Why'd they do it like that? Celestia also has a speech about how awful the human world is compared to the pony world. Yeah, whatever. I think we've gotten enough of that from Anon. Dashie realizes she has to leave her dad, and yeah, it does get a little sad. I make fun, but we've seen him raise this thing for 10 years and have the experience change him. Don't know how the pony herself is, but if I'm being honest, Dashie barely talks in this. It's really about the guy. We get a no don't pull moment when they say their goodbyes, and she writes him a note for him to look at after she goes to Equestria. Anon decides that he should live the rest of his life in stride, because that's what his surrogate pony daughter would have wanted. The story deals with a bunch of emotional highs and lows, and while it might seem a little over the top or melodramatic, it did get me at points. And as I said, those bronies were ballin' over this. My Little Dashie would have multiple attempts at adaptations. The My Little Pony fan labor wiki, a catalog of all types of brony fan stuff which I've referenced many a time in my videos, mentions this failed full-length movie adaptation, but all the links to it are expired, and, you know, this is Fandom Wiki. Do you think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies? This article also claims a notorious fanfiction novel series titled The Titan's Orb considers the My Little Dashie story as a genuine event. Oh, notorious. Why haven't I heard of it, random fanfic author who clearly added it to the article? There's this teaser uploaded by YouTube user My Little Driver, which has really great animation, but nothing ever came out of it. And the only other video uploaded on the channel was a promo for this LA Brony convention. The effects work in that one is great too. Where did these guys go? Not one, but two comic adaptations were made. One by DeviantArt user Waltz Brony, and the other by Neon Cabaret. The Waltz Brony one, I guess you could say is better, but the other version has this dated charm to it, and yeah, I said dated. No offense, but even for 2012, this art style looks like something that would have came out 10 years ago. It's still the better version. Former Brony musician Mike the Microphone would do a reading of the original story, and I found a few videos that combine it with the 2012 comic. Or this one by YouTube user Little Dashie Fan, which is kind of a full-length movie, but only because it uses the longer reading and adds some bits of animation. The real video version of My Little Dashie is this one by StormXF3, a user known not only for that, but for doing a bunch of these pony in real life shorts. As an adaptation of the story, My Little Dashie, the mini-movie as it's called, is pretty spot on to the source material. It really just takes the story and has it read as a narration over most of the scenes, with some bits of dialogue from the characters, mostly when all the other ponies show up at the end. Because they use so much of the narration, I think it doesn't stand out as its own thing that much. I know it's based on the story, but if it's going to be adapted into another medium, ideally, you take advantage of that more to tell the story. And they do that for sure, but there's always that rule, don't make me tap the sign, show don't tell, and they do a lot of telling, even with their showing. I know I complain about this and everything, but they do the thing where they'll have some throwaway line and there always has to be some corresponding thing happening. Like, oh, what if she just disappears back to Equestria one day, Anon says, and then they show an imaginary thing of her disappearing. In that case, I'd like a little more showing. Also, I don't know, the narrator's inflections aren't how I'd imagine certain things being said, especially in the beginning where he relays his sad backstory like a Scott the Woz video. I also thought the music could be a little overbearing sometimes, but I think if they cut out a lot of the narration and had it only at a few points, it could have worked a lot better. But on the positive side, a lot of the compositing and editing ponies into this real footage looks like it would be a pain, and for 2014, this is some great work. There was an entire team doing this here. Original animation combined with show footage was used. I mean, you can tell which is which, but there are a lot of moving parts here. I think the camera work is also really good. There are these tracking shots that look super professional, and it's composed really nicely. That's the big plus here, the production value. I mean, some of the locations aren't really accurate to the story. When I read it, I picture Anon's dead town he lives in being this run-down commercial area, but they shot it out in this beautiful Swiss countryside with, like, mountains in the background. There's one shot where they have a castle or something. You know, I was expecting something gross, not this the hills are alive type view. You know, how dare the country this guy lives in not look disgusting, am I right, fellas? I'm joking. StormXF3 would continue making ponies in real life videos, and they're still actually going on till this day. You can see some serious improvement in not only the compositing, but also the use of the camera. Editing too, I watched a few of the recent ones and they were a lot of fun. You heard me, a lot. Like an abandoned one you couldn't find to film the My Little Dashie video in. These are really well made and are like classic YouTube. This takes me back to 2014 big time. What can I say? If you haven't seen these, actually just Go check him out. He even made the Dio meets Twilight one. You know, actually good pony fan content being made right now. Guys, go watch it. Anyways, out of curiosity, I decided to check out a bunch of other MLP in real life videos. There's one by this guy where he puts a decal on his car and then King Sombra shows up and at the end he gets his katana to go fight him. Listen dude, laugh, but this is what bronies have to deal with on the daily. You think it's fun when King Sombra comes and you gotta get your katana that you bought at the mall to go slay him? I found this one called Pony Meets World, which is this entire series by this guy. It starts out really similar to My Little Dashie. Even the setting looks a lot more like what I thought it would. They have this scene where it's like those Smurfs, Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, where the guy's like, what the flip? Ponies in the real world? I skipped to the last episode and there's like deep lore apparently. These are genuine works of filmmaking here. Anything like this is a lot of fun to watch. It's not Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but the effects are neat. Every one of these pony hybrid videos looked like they were a lot of fun to make. I watched the Rainbow Dash Presents one again for this, and there's no reason that one needs to be the same length as the actual mini-movie. It's not really making fun of the original story. I mean, there are a few lines here and there, especially in the beginning, that either take stuff from the original or twists it, but most of it they go in a completely different direction, like the Harry Potter Batman parody, or Keeping Rainbow Locked Inside, or the stereotypes, Tubby Wubby Pony Waifu. I feel that justifies the length because that really is most of it. They only take the beginning and the end from the fanfic. I really do like the NASCAR part though, or the bits that, yeah, are making fun of the story, where the Anon monkey is trying to give Dash a good home, but everything in his house is run down and he's severely depressed. And Tubby Wubby Pony Waifu is like a B-tier brony song. Iconic, but not too good on its own. You know, can't forget that little Uzi Vert sample either. After covering so many of these fanfics or whatever that are obviously written by teenagers, it's fun to see something that tries to be a little more mature. You know, the bare minimum. My Little Dashie is a neat story. I will admit the premise is weird, and going into this I was worried it would have weird undertones, but surprisingly everything we talked about was very tame, even those videos, which is why I recommend you check them out. I like the My Little Dashie movie too, just because of what it stands for. You know, the raw spirit of creativity and movie magic, TM. Before we end this video, I want to give a special shout out to my actor supporters from Patreon. Bill Shaker YT, Quinamon, Lula, Jaina Shadows, Zozas Amaze, Nublet67, Trevor, Mario Trombet Patron, Dodie Gore, Byron Ritchie, One Pridgiboo, HBM, Scambuli, As Safrani, Hoodie, Nana, Kaylee Lahota, Knife Girl, Technicolor, Jack Getchman, Olive, SR Nano, Gator Kitty, Bad Bessie, and Marshmallow. I can't think of a better outro, so until next time, goodbye.